Hi, everyone. Welcome to the All Things AI podcast. My name is Ishan, and this is the 28th episode. Here with me today is Chiara Marcati, the Chief AI Advisor of AI 71 and a former partner at McKinsey. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me here today.
Thank you, Ishan, for having me, and thank you, everybody, for listening.
Of course, yeah. And I just want to jump straight into it. So, would you want to tell me a bit more about your previous work experience and the new roles that you're starting soon?
Thank you, Ishan. So maybe let me start with I'm a telecom engineer by background. I study a lot of engineering, a lot of tech, but after my thesis, which was quite painful and a lot of computer and coding involved, I decided to leave the world of engineering and coding and I went to McKinsey. McKinsey, I stayed for 20 years. I really grow into the business role and I tried many sector, many function, geography. I was in Europe and then I moved to Middle East. I've been for 14 years in Middle East. And for the last 10, I started to work on AI within McKinsey. And the last five, we actually built our AI hub in IMA region that is called Quantum Black, which is the AI arm of McKinsey. And I was leading the AI hub for the IMA region, that is anything between Azerbaijan down to South Africa and everything in the middle, passing by Middle East, where I'm based on. And in McKinsey, I was helping client embrace AI and embed AI into their organization and really transform their business with AI. I also helped build the hub, roughly 100 people, and we had a bunch of amazing colleagues. Now, last month, I recently transitioned in AI 71. In AI 71, as you said, I'm the Chief AI Advisory and Commercial. So think about I lead all the function except the technical delivery for AI 71. AI 71 is one of the company of the AI, the ATRC ecosystem. The ATRC ecosystem is the Advancing Technology Research Institute, Research Council in Abu Dhabi. And they are, by the way, well known because they are the where Falcon has been developed. I don't know if you're familiar, but Falcon is one of the models that have been developed in the UAE. In AI 71, we are develop cutting edge application for business users. And I help client to understand how can then take this technology application and other technology application embedded in their business and really add value for themselves and for the institution. I hope that that was clear enough and maybe we can talk more about whatever you find interesting.
For sure, yeah. No, I really think you have like a great background in this area. Just like I like to see like the transition, I guess, from the fully technical aspect to like really going into consulting. And I know that Quantum Black's at like the top of like AI consulting worldwide. So, um, I just want to ask, like, is there any sort of like project or something that you worked on while you were at McKinsey that you found to be like really interesting?
Uh, so to be honest with you, I enjoyed all my project, but there was one that I really felt very close is that when we helped a municipality in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to build a digital twin of an area of land to help them monitor the progress of their construction. And to do that, what we did, we used satellite imagery and then we apply AI on top of the satellite imagery to do video recognition, images recognition, to be able to assess the readiness of the project and measure the pace of construction, understanding the quality, and really in that way, really support all the inspection team and all the compliance team that were on the field. And the reason why I love it is that brought me back at my university year when I was focusing on remote sensing. So we were working on the satellite. And then the world of AI, because what we did is through the satellite, and we work with several vendors to re render the area. So basically, we create a digital replica and we show the leaders, hey, this is how your construction site look now. This is what the progress look like. And by the way, if I compare to your plan, this is where you should have been. This is where you are now. So it really brought together many things. And what I really love the most is that the CEOs and the executive really appreciate because it helped them a lot. Because in the construction world, being late on construction really cost them a lot of money. So being able to have a real-time eye without sending fleet of people, which is very complex and sometimes not feasible, it was a huge deal for them. And for some reason, this project brought me back into my remote sensing time and really brought a AI cutting edge application of the rendering and the rebuilding of the city.
No, for sure. That sounds like a great little throwback to, I guess, what you were really involved in the past.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I think that's a really good application of AI because, I mean, in the sense, like creating something like a digital twin and a virtual replica, that's what AI is kind of meant for. And we're seeing way more progress with that heading into the future. So I really think like that not only provides clarity, but it's also something that like maybe like needs to be used more in construction projects just because it's like having that roadmap of where you are is extremely important for anything construction related. Like as I've seen in like just reading news and things like that in general.
Yeah, but honestly speaking, I'm a big fan of all this AI on satellite, even beyond construction. I mean, think about you through satellite, you can really help farmers to truly understand what's the state of their vegetation, even in big fields, and they can do it down to 15, 30 centimeters. A square plot and really give them like almost like the ability to stay in control of everything in a relatively low cost manner.
No, for
So
sure.
it's not just construction, it's really a really broad application.
I completely agree with that. Like, I mean, you brought up one point about how satellites are extremely precise. And the other thing is that when you take images with these satellites, like there's so much research going on out there, and it's really easy to like create an AI model that can analyze these satellite images and provide a crop disease diagnosis or like something about how much water
For
the crops need.
example.
It's becoming extremely easy to do that. So I think like as
And
science
by the way,
moves.
if somebody wants to play around it, sorry to interrupt, there is also a world of open source model that people can actually have fun with. I mean, at some point, I even had in my private life a bit of a little project where I was going online and identify a certain model open source and play with them and see what they could do just for fun.
No, for sure. Like, I guess outside of the podcast, one thing that I like to do is do my own little research projects with deep learning. And so, what I like the approach that I've taken many times is I'll use some sort of imported model that was trained by like Google or Facebook or some of the other leaders in AI. Because at the end of the day, that was like literally millions or even in some cases billions of resources that billions of dollars worth of resources that was put towards training those models. So I think really once you have that technology, fine-tuning it to like 30, 40 different purposes is really awesome because it really goes to show how widespread the application of AI can be. Like whether you have like an image model, a
100%.
text model, a speech model. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
And the next thing that I want to move on is like constructing value to businesses. So I just want to ask, how can institutions and businesses apply AI to construct value?
That's a very good question. Maybe let me just play back what I typically tell my client, or used to tell my client when I was in McKinsey, but what I do now, tell my client as well, is I always say AI doesn't invent value, okay? AI really helps turbo accelerate and value that is already innate in the institution. Yeah, sometimes it can help create new business growth, but the value needs to be already inside the business. So what I like the way I like to start the conversation, and I say, imagine that you have a magic wand. And imagine that you can automate or squeeze insight or really personalize the area of your business. Where would you start? Like, how would you think about? And I always try to move my clients from the discussion about AI and back to their business. And I ask them, for example, let's understand what are your five headaches? What are the things that really in your business bothers you? Because the biggest pitfall is that people try to solve for how can I use AI? But they don't understand that in reality, AI is just a tool to address a business problem. So going back to your question, there is not a one answer, but it really depends on where the business challenges are. So what I tell the CXOs or the CEO is just let's map your business flow and point at the finger where your problem are. And honestly, let's think about if we have a magic wand, what we would do to that problem. Is it a problem you don't have enough insight? So let's think about how we can use AI to really bring together the data and elevate that type of insight. Is it a problem of inefficiency in the process? Let's think about the agentic workflows. Let's think about simple automation and how we can really do that. So, going back to your question, it's not AI that adds value, but is the ability to identify specifically what the problem you have and then identify what is the optimal solution would be and then use AI to turbo accelerate that solution. But it's a business answer, not an AI is just like a tool. It's like an enabling thing to address the problem,
No,
if that makes sense.
I completely see what you're saying. And in a way, it's like why I call it artificial intelligence. You might as well refer to it as like automation intelligence because that's like what AI is doing right now. It's like at the forefront of automating things. And so, like in my own
By the
experiences,
way, can I add one analogy that I love
of
to say?
course.
Think about AI, but in particular Gen AI, as a backpack for knowledge worker. And I don't know if you have like, if you remember in these cartoons that you have this backpack that have propeller that accelerate you. It's exactly the same. It's not changing the work itself. It's just propelling and turbo accelerating so people can be much more efficient, effective, and to the point and much more precise in their way they operate.
Yeah, I completely see that. Like even here in the US, like there's a lot of small businesses out there that are struggling actively. One, they don't have enough workers or manpower to do things. But like or the thing is there's so many challenges that at the end of the day, if AI tools that are literally open source, like ChatGPT or other Gen AI, is used effectively, they can do things like help with marketing, search engine optimization, emails, and like so many of the other things that people don't need to be taken care of. And that's why I think like automation intelligence is like a fairly decent acronym for AI
I
in a
like
way.
it. I'm gonna use it.
So, in the last question, we talked a bit about how companies get started with artificial intelligence. And so, your whole approach is finding the challenges that businesses have and then identifying how AI can solve them. That said, I don't think it's as easy as just identifying a problem and then immediately finding a solution. There are challenges in that as well. So, my final question to you is what are the typical challenges in executing AI for businesses?
This is an excellent question, Ishan. And if you think about organization, I mean, they all have different challenges depending on their size, depending on their geography. But let's simplify. Let's take a mid to large size company that is well established, so no startup.
Yeah,
Typically, they face two macro challenges. One challenge, which for me is the one that is the biggest one, and if you ask leader, everybody will tell you that is also the most complicated to address, is the human side and the adoption of the AI from the human. And the second one is more on the technical side. So think about adoption in particular, I would say there are probably three underpinning challenges. Challenge number one, which in the recent year, I think there has been a massive acceleration, is the AI literacy. People cannot adopt something that they don't understand. And hence the push on really trying to find models self-explanatory, capability building, because it's very hard to adopt something that you don't know what it is. The second one is once they know what it is, they fear. Because the AI is something new. Will I get my job? Will I lose my job? Will I lose my credibility? How do I look like? How does this work? And that element of fear, I think, is quite critical.
for sure.
And leaders in organization needs to address that fear. And the third challenge from a human point of view is the legacy. You've been doing for 30 years the job in a certain way. Now, this data scientist of 19 years old calm and try to explain to you how you do your job differently or why the insight is
Yeah.
coming up with are much better than yours. That part and the revolution around changing the way you conduct your business has been exactly complicated. So this human package, which you might heard about a lot of emphasis on change management around AI, is one of the major challenges that typical established organization face. And then the second set of challenges around technology, think about, for example, an infrastructure. You, as bank, they have this huge and complex core system that have been there and established for a while. And now AI, there is a new agile technology needs to coexist with that. So that technical coexistence can represent a challenge in many cases, and therefore there needs to be a smart way where you don't want to get bogged down, but legacy technology, but at the same time you can't forget you have a system. And many times on top of the system, you also have your data. And without your data, it's very hard to do AI.
Yeah.
So that, let's say, a bit who comes first, the chicken and egg story on the data and legacy system. Sometimes it's a bit of a complex reality that organizations need to deal with. And then, of course, there is the other complication that often people don't know where to start, and they often start with the POCs, and they start with many, many, many POCs. And then at
Yeah.
some point, I call them, they create a factory of POCs and they have a bunch of models. They don't talk to each other. There's no there's no scalability, let's say scalable strategy around the way they build the POC, and therefore there's no plan on how to scale from. Then it's something that you might have heard and you're familiar with. We call it MLOps, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really the ability to create that agile backend, quote unquote, of AI that allow you to quickly scale up. So those are, let's say, the two macro family of, if you ask me, the main challenge. And then, of course, data governance, risk policies, governance, measurement, all a bit the hygiene that organization tend to think too late, right? Oops, I didn't think about who's the owner, how do I manage the data, and then you have very important data that are ungoverned. Or oops, I didn't think about measure the impact. I have many AI use case rollout, but I don't know if they're really yielding the right impact. Or oops, I didn't define what are the risk and compliance guardrail that I want to give to my AI. What are the things that I'm comfortable doing? What are the things that I'm not comfortable doing? Do I want the AI to face the customer? Do I don't want the AI to face the customer? So, but I think those are, again, I don't want to talk too much, but those are the
Yeah.
macro area that I feel are often the pain point of leaders.
Yeah, and I think I'll throw this out there really quickly. I think you could even group some of that under like the two words trustworthy AI because and that's such a nuanced issue because one, like people have been doing things like in businesses for decades now. So it's like, why do I really want this machine to come in and change literally everything? And because some people will think that it could destroy their workflow, and others might recognize the potential of how it's going to enhance it. And matter of fact, I think a lot of people are understanding that AI can enhance what they're doing. That's why there's so many like startups going into building like small niche AI technologies for different purposes. But beyond that, I also think like in terms of trustworthy AI, data security is extremely important because already like in the United States, we're seeing that there's things like data leaks that are going on. And like also like using data that wasn't authorized for training. That's why New York Times and OpenAI got into a lawsuit. And so I think these are all really good examples of how trustworthy AI needs to be amplified, I guess, in a sense. So I think those are definitely challenges that companies are currently facing and will continue to face. But I think in due time, and like once the same like problems are coming up time and time again, solutions can also be reapplied. So yeah.
Indeed, indeed, Isha.
So with that said, that's all I had planned for today. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Ishan, for having me, and thank everybody for listening.